One of the biggest secrets of a strong marriage, or a friendship for that matter, is emotional capacity. Does one person feel they're doing all the work, or where's the balance there? Well, Eric Rittmeyer has deep thoughts about this because he's a mental toughness expert who's an author as well, joining us with tips on this very topic. Emotional capacity. Ooh, it sounds complex, Eric, but you tell me it isn't.
It's not. You know, us Marines, we can hardly read or write. These are two of the biggest words in my English language. So I can explain them a little bit, but I don't know how to spell them. So don't ask me to do that.
Okay, I'm going to have you talk about being a Marine, too, in just a minute. But so let's start with the meaning of what we're going to talk about here.
Yeah, so emotional capacity, Paula, just means in any relationship, you have two people, and like you had said, whether it be a romantic relationship or just a friendship or even coworkers, everybody has varying levels of emotional capacity, meaning that at some point their emotional needs are met. But if you have two people who have two varying levels of capacity, one person might be totally content with where they are and with what they're getting, what they're giving, but the other person might not be getting nearly enough. And if they don't communicate that with each other, it can cause a breakdown in relationships, unfortunately. Yeah.
So let's hone in on the romantic relationship between spouses, or people, a couple who love each other. So should we be asking, should we ask our spouse, am I meeting your emotional needs? Or should I be asking, are my emotional needs being met? Do I need to ask that of myself and of my partner?
I think it's a combination of both, Paul, because here's the thing, right? At the core of every relationship is communication. Communication 101. And when we communicate, we have to get a lot better at listening, right? As a society, unfortunately, we're listening with the intent to reply, not with the intent to understand. So as it relates to our relationships, it all starts with asking the other person, hey, am I giving you enough? Or you get what you think you need? But then they have to reciprocate, and they have to accept the fact that if one person says they're not getting enough and the other one says I'm getting too much, you got to meet somewhere in the middle.
Right, and sometimes we use when we have arguments or when communication breaks down, we use words like, you're too needy, or you're being sensitive, or you're high maintenance. These are all very negative things to say in a relationship.
They sure are. And the problem with it is it calls people to shut down. So the minute you throw those words out the other person, what happens next time something's wrong or they feel a certain way? Well, guess what? They're not going to want to articulate how they feel because they're afraid of the response they're going to get. So we're all emotional creatures. We're hardwired to feel first and think later. We're all entitled to our own emotional responses to situations. No matter how ill-calibrated we might think they are, we have to respect somebody's opinion, somebody's belief system, somebody's feelings of situations, and just recognize that although it's different than ours, I have to address it, make certain they know that I'm getting where they're coming from.
Yeah, you have some steps to take. Your first one is to detect. So this is kind of our strategy here. Here's our guidebook, Eric. How are we detecting first?
We're paying attention. We're watching. We're getting the signals. We're seeing what causes them to get upset or causes them to get emotional or causes them to get angry. We have to get these things. These might be considered like triggers with someone. We have to be very good emotional detectives and pay attention. We have to be aware. We have to know what they're doing, see what they're doing. People who are high in emotional intelligence are really good on their toes. They're able to get a read of the room. They're able to sense when somebody's having a difficult time. Detecting why they're getting emotional is a very important part of it.
Yeah, I think of the phrase we hear so much now recently, which is you see me. I want you to see me, right? And I think that's what you're talking about with the detection. Notice how I am, right?
You have to. All relationships require mutual back and forth, understanding the other person, recognizing where they're coming from, knowing their hot buttons, knowing why they're getting upset. And not saying that you always need to avoid those things, but you have to start by knowing that person and understanding when they're getting that state of mind, they're probably going to act emotionally, and it's going to be a little bit different.
And I think, so inspection, the next step here is really part of that, right? Once you detect, then you really look into it, like a detective.
Sure, you got to get to the core of it, right? I'm in the process of writing my next book. It's called The Core. You got to get to the core of the issue. So once you recognize what makes them emotional, then you have to get to the core of why are they getting emotional? So when somebody cries in a movie, does it mean that they're really crying because they're upset? Or does it mean they're crying because that reminds them of their parents when they were still alive? Or are they crying because they're angry? It's once you know why they're emotional, then get to the core of it. Okay, what's causing this? And it's not that once you know the cause of it, you want to avoid it, but it's being aware of it, knowing that if something happens, you might be misreading why they're getting so upset.
And in our remaining seconds, Eric, what does being a Marine have to do with all of this for you?
That's you threw me for a loop there, Paula. So the Marine Corps was part of my book, The Emotional Marine, play on words, right? It's the emotional piece with the mental toughness piece as well. So it's like, okay, I think it's all about self-awareness. That's the key to it. Being a Marine, we're very much in control of our emotions, which is what mental toughness is all about, emotional control, not trying to ignore it or deny it or put it underneath the pillow. It's learning to recognize the emotion and learning how to channel it.
Eric, thank you so much.